In this video, we're going to look at the process for how to transfer into an Ivy League university or any other top university. And the good news is that in many cases, it's actually much easier to get into these universities as a transfer student than it is as a freshman applicant. And I've helped many students do exactly that. So I'm going to break down the video into three parts. First, when to transfer. Second, where to transfer. And finally, how to transfer. First, when to transfer. If you're talking about the Ivy League, then the ideal time to transfer is at the start of your sophomore year. So you would do 1 year of college somewhere else, you would file your application by March, and then you would start at your new school as a sophomore. This is the preferred way. But it's important to know that Ivy League universities do accept junior transfers as well, just not as many of them. And every school is a little different. Like Stanford, for example, prefers that you transfer in as a junior. And UC Berkeley requires that you transfer in as a junior. So if you have any doubt at all, it's a good idea to kind of go to the website of your favorite universities and see what their requirements are. The second part is where to transfer. And the important thing to know here is that top universities vary wildly in terms of their transfer acceptance rates. Some top schools love transfer students and they accept a lot of them each year. And there are other schools where it's particularly difficult to get in. So let's begin by looking at some schools with the best transfer rates. If you look at this chart, you'll see that there are a number of excellent universities here, and they all have really good transfer acceptance rates. The green bars are the transfer rates, and the red bars are the freshman rates. And you could see that across the board at all these schools, it's much easier to get in as a transfer student than as a freshman applicant. On the most competitive side, if you look at schools like Cornell, Columbia, and Dartmouth, you have about a double or a triple multiple for getting in. So if their regular admission rate is about 5% for freshmen, then the transfer acceptance rate runs between 10% and 15%. It's still very competitive, but you can see you have a huge advantage. But when you look at some of the other schools in this list, you have a huge advantage getting in as a transfer student. So if you look at Emory University, for example, the acceptance rate for freshmen is around 12 or 13%. But the transfer acceptance rate is closer to 35%. NYU, it's the same thing. You have about a 13% acceptance rate for freshmen, but about a 40% acceptance rate for transfers. And Tulane, which has another very difficult school to get into as a freshman, around less than 10%, you have about a 50% chance of getting in as a transfer applicant. Now let's look at some schools that are notoriously difficult to get in as a transfer student. So everything on this list has a transfer acceptance rate below 5%, and that includes UPenn, Brown, Princeton, MIT, Yale, and Harvard. And the other thing you'll notice is that across the board, it's actually harder to get into these schools as a transfer student than it is as a freshman applicant. And notably, schools like Princeton, MIT, Yale, and Harvard have about a 1% or less transfer acceptance rate. Now, this isn't meant to discourage you because they do accept transfers, and every year there are a number of transfer students who get in, but you have to be an exceptional student. Finally, how to transfer. Number one thing you have to do is you have to prioritize your college GPA. This is crucial. You want to get a 4.0 or a 3.9 or something very close to that, and you want to be taking a lot of courses in your intended major. Second thing you need to do is you need to impress your college professors. You're going to need 1 or 2 teacher recommendations, and they have to come from college. You can't use your high school teacher recommendations. And since the application deadline is March, you really only have fall term of your freshman year to get this in order. So you need to really impress your teachers right away. You need to sit in the front row. You need to become a star student. You need to go to every office hours. If your professor has published books or articles, I would read them. And I would also try to do a research project with those professors. You don't want to tell them that you're planning to transfer until after you've completed the course, but you really want to develop a good relationship with them and really impress them. The third thing you want to do is you want to focus on 1 or 2 key extracurricular activities that are in your intended major and where you can show that you have a profound impact. Again, your high school resume is not going to matter as much. They're really going to look at what you've been doing since you've been in college. So you want to carefully pick 1 or 2 activities that are in your area of focus and where you can do something notable. And fourth, and perhaps most important, you want to develop a hyper-focused narrative. You need to convince these schools that the area you want to pursue is really unavailable where you are, but it would be ideal in your new school. So for example, you say, what I really want to do, I realized, is I want to pursue neuroscience, but my current school doesn't have a neuroscience program, and the school I'm applying to has one of the best in the nation. Whatever your story is, you need to make a clear and convincing argument that I know who I am, I know what I want to do, and really the only place to do it is at your school. Let's look at some commonly asked questions. Should I retake the SAT or ACT? Yes, you have a perfect opportunity to take this test again, and every school will appreciate that, even if they're test optional. If you already have like a 1550 on the SAT or 34 or 35 on the ACT, I wouldn't bother taking it again. But if there's any way you can improve your score and get closer to one of those numbers, it's definitely worth doing. Second, should I rewrite my personal statement? Absolutely. You're a little bit older now, and you should have some new experiences as a college student. So unless you have a really killer personal statement that you used first time around as a freshman applicant, it definitely makes sense to rewrite it. Third, if I already applied to a school as a freshman, will they go back and look at my old application? Of course they will. So you need to make sure that you've shown a lot of growth and development since you submitted that application a year and a half ago. If you're regurgitating the same things, it's going to be very hard for you to get in. But if you've blossomed and you've discovered yourself and you know what you want to do, and it looks notably different, then you have a good chance of getting in. And finally, what are top schools looking for in transfer applicants? Well, here's where it's very different. They're looking for spice. They're looking to bring on students that they currently don't have in their class. So for example, if you went to a community college, well, that's something that they don't currently have. That will help you. If you're a military veteran, they don't have that. That will help you. If you come from an unusual part of the world, or you have an unusual backstory, or maybe you want to pursue some field that's a little off the beaten path or hyper-specific, they may not have that. You need to bring some spice to campus and offer something different from what they already have. I hope this helps. I'll put my contact information in the video description, so if you have any questions at all, you can always reach out to me.